Poverty, unemployment and inequality numbers are very high in South Africa. The working class and the poor face many existential challenges, and the ANC government is failing on multiple levels. Is May Day, International Workers' Day, worth celebration? Do workers have anything to celebrate after 29 years into democracy? We unpack this with Dr. Trevor Ngwane, a socialist and anti-apartheid activist. Dr. Trevor, appreciate your time. Let's talk about May Day, Workers' Day. Is there anything really for South African workers to celebrate tomorrow?
Thank you, Hugo, and your viewers. There is very little for workers in South Africa to celebrate tomorrow because living standards, the everyday life of ordinary working class people and the poor is terrible. There are so many problems, load shedding, unemployment, rising inequality. There is little to celebrate.
Now, let's talk about these challenges and what can the workers do about them?
Well, workers in South Africa are one of the most strong in the world in terms of union organization. Although union organization is low in South Africa, but it's among the highest in the world in general. The union movement in South Africa was very strong. Remember, it led the struggle against apartheid. The problem started, Hugo, when they made this alliance with the ANC, the governing party, and the South African Communist Party. Then the union stopped fighting an all-out battle. They were holding back some of their strength because they thought that their alliance partner was now running government. That is the source of the problem.
So, Dr. Trevor, let's go back to the signing of that alliance. Was this a master move by the ANC government, or was it weakness, certainly by the labour movement?
Well, at the time, it looked like a good deal for both parties. Remember, on the one hand, the ANC was the one party which the millions of oppressed people were looking towards for their liberation. On the other, the unions usually they need a labor-friendly government because they need policies and laws that will favor them. So for a moment, it looked like it was a good deal. But unfortunately, that alliance was under the leadership of the ANC. So the unions were junior partners to the ANC, to the government.
So 29 years post-freedom, we've outlined, and you've spoken to the numerous challenges that the workers are facing. I mean, the rising cost of living, power supply interrupted throughout every single day of our lives for the last couple of years. Is it time that the workers' unions call time on this relationship or this alliance with the ANC?
You know, Hugo, the funny thing is that because they are having this alliance, because the ANC is running government, when the ANC loses its majority control of the government next year, that might signal the demise of this alliance because the unions will have nothing to gain from an ANC which is not holding power. But certainly for the past decade or two, many people on the left have been saying the unions must get out of the alliance.
So let's talk about the relevance of the unions in today's labour movement. Are they relevant? Are they able to fight for the workers as they should be?
Well, if you're a worker in a factory, you know, you do need a union because if you face the boss alone, then the boss can use divide and rule, can push you around. So workers do need unions, but they need strong, fighting, effective unions. So when the union is weak, then it's bad for workers. In fact, they end up either moving from one union to another, or they just stop joining unions. Unfortunately, throughout the world, due to the type of capitalism, neoliberalism, which we have, unions have been weakened. So, these big companies now, they move their money, they also close down a factory, open it up in China. All those things have served to weaken unions. So unions have really need to come up with new strategies to strengthen themselves so that they can defend workers effectively.
Do you get the sense that in this alliance, the role of Labour, or certainly their support is, well, let me put it another way. Let's look at the Lily mine disaster and the fact that 3 of the Lily mine workers are still buried underground, and nothing has been done in order to deal with that situation. And not because the mines cannot afford it. Is it because the workers' union in this regard are failing the workers?
Well, it's a sad example you are using, Hugo, but it's good because you know that Joseph Matunja of AMCU, he spent, he even went underground, looking for these miners. He's always there. So, but the people who are failing the union there is the ANC government, which is not forcing the bosses to do what is right. So, the demise, the fall of the weakness of the unions in South Africa is the ANC. And this friendship, this comradeship that unions have with the government of the capitalists, a government of the rich, which is helping to attack them.
So, as Workers' Day is celebrated tomorrow, or commemorated tomorrow rather, it's important to also look at the other side of the equation. What is the success of the ANC government for workers since 1994?
Well, certainly the ANC was there when we got our liberation from apartheid. So that's a good thing. The only thing is that apartheid was a form of capitalism. It was racial capitalism. So when apartheid ended, capitalism continued, which means workers continue to be exploited. So whatever gains workers got, they are undermined by the fact that they continue to have their blood, their sweat, their tears shed for the benefit of the bosses. So the way forward really is for the workers to revive their vision of socialism, probably form a workers' party or a labor party, and try and go into parliament and fight for policies which are pro-working class.
Now, if we look at the number of young people in the country, in fact, across the African continent, they're anything between 60 and 75% of most populations. But coming home to South Africa, is there a need to change leadership and get younger blood, more youthful representation to represent the majority of young people?
Yeah, it's true, Hugo. Revolutions are usually made by the young. The young, they are bold. The young, they are daring. So, yes, we do need strong, youth-led movements. But those movements, because the young also don't have experience from that respect, those movements need to learn from the mistakes of the past. So they should know what the older people did wrong and not repeat those mistakes.
Now, a little while ago, you mentioned that if the ANC government loses 50%, or certainly the majority, that alliance is likely to fall away, certainly with Labour. Is a writing on the wall? Is this a good time for workers' unions to start reinventing themselves, or thinking of how they can reintegrate, taking into account what is likely to happen on the horizon?
They should have done that already yesterday. Can you see? And in any case, even if they don't do it now, you know, as you say, Hugo, when the ANC falls, they'll have no choice but to reinvent themselves. So they should start today, you know, rebuilding themselves and creating new political alternatives for themselves and their class.
So do we expect the alliance with the... So you suggested that the alliance with the ANC will fall away. Can we expect alliance with a new political party? Is that the way to go?
Well, at the moment, when I look at all the political parties, they are all pro-capitalist. If they say they are socialist, you know, I'm not sure of their credentials. So they might have to prove themselves, such as the EFF, for example. But I would rather the workers, you know, have a good look at themselves, have a longer-term view, have a longer-term strategy, and build slowly their own working class party. Karl Marx said the working class must build its own party. It must not be led by parties, led by other classes, by the middle class, certainly not by the bourgeoisie. So I think Labour must really go to the drawing board, maybe even miss next year's election and rebuild and build a working class party for the long haul. They are not fighting for themselves. They are fighting for their children and their children's children. So it should be a long struggle.
Final question before we let you go, Dr. Trevor. Is Labour conflicted because of these alliances?
Oh, of course. Not only conflicted, but completely undermined. It's almost like going into a boxing match with your hands tied behind your back. So the unions, the union leaders, they must liberate themselves and then fight the good fight. Fight to win.
Dr. Trevor Ngwane, socialist and anti-apartheid activist, speaking to us ahead of Workers' Day tomorrow.